We're following some breaking news out of Capitol Hill tonight. Congressman Matt Gaetz has officially filed a motion to kick Speaker Kevin McCarthy out of his leadership position. Gaetz had been threatening to hold a vote to remove McCarthy after he cut a deal with Democrats on a House spending bill to prevent a government shutdown. Here's Gaetz on the House floor tonight.
Declaring the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives to be vacant. Resolved that the office of Speaker of the House of Representatives is hereby declared to be vacant.
There was a bit of a machismo back and forth, but McCarthy had this simple three-word response: bring it on. He said that before. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman of New York. So you are probably blissfully not in that caucus. But I do have to ask you, I mean, your colleague, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said she would vote to get rid of Speaker McCarthy. And just moments ago, Jerry Conley just told NBC News Democrats should let McCarthy fail. Do you agree with that?
Well, I haven't been provided any reason to save Kevin McCarthy. Look at what has happened over the last 9 months. He has shown no interest or willingness to engage in any bipartisan conversations. He reached a deal with President Biden on the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and then he went back against his own deal. And then he opened up a completely bogus, sham, baseless impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden. And we're supposed to celebrate because he did the right thing one time this weekend and kept the government open. He's done nothing that would warrant me not voting for a 16th time for the person who should be the Speaker of the House, Hakeem Jeffries.
So it sounds like you would vote for a motion to vacate, if I'm just reading between the lines.
Unless something changes. And, you know, I think Kevin McCarthy has to figure out if he wants to partner with Democrats or not. But he's been a disastrous speaker for the last 9 months.
Now, in addition to your views and many of your colleagues' views, he's lost some support clearly within his caucus. He might need some Democrats to save his speakership. Do you think he'll try to gather some support from Democrats? Well,
my suspicion is he absolutely will need Democrats. And the real open question right now is, what does he do? Because if you play this out, it gets a little bit more complicated. If he relies on Democrats because he makes a deal with Democrats in some way, well, that may resolve his speakership right now, but he is going to have to legislate for another year. Every single time a rule comes up, he's going to need Democrats to pass a rule. So he will then have to enter into some form of coalition government.
That's a bit of a challenge for Kevin McCarthy, a tightrope of sorts. I want to ask you about the New York trial that took place today, because this took place in your district. You're sort of the connector between all of the chaos that's happening out there. Do you see a connection between Donald Trump's behavior and the behavior you see from someone like Matt Gaetz?
Donald Trump is a mob boss down in Mar-a-Lago directing his soldiers in the House of Representatives what they should do. And that relates both to the shutdown and to the 90 people who voted against the continuing resolution. And it relates to the impeachment, which Donald Trump has very actively encouraged because he wants retribution for his own impeachments and he wants to hurt his opponent, President Biden. This is, remember, the exact investigation that Trump tried to extort and coerce President Zelensky to do in Ukraine in 2019. President Zelensky had a backbone and stood up to Donald Trump. Kevin McCarthy and the House Republicans do not. So we are where we are right now because this is what Donald Trump wants.
So you are obviously a politically savvy guy, but you have some serious legal credentials as well. As you were watching what was happening in the courtroom today, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but it seemed to me like more of a political argument from Trump's team than a legal argument. What did you make of what was happening in there?
That is exactly what I thought. Donald Trump is outside. His lawyer is even inside, making all of these arguments about election interference and persecution and witch hunt and all this stuff. His lawyer is even making that inside. Those arguments would fail with a jury of 12 peers. But he doesn't even have a jury. It's just a judge. A judge could not care less about any of those arguments. And this is where the disconnect in Donald Trump's world is going to collide with reality, because he operates in a fiction-filled world based on lies and brainwashing and cults. But when he gets in a courtroom, there are different rules that apply, and he's not in charge. And he is going to have a serious comeuppance.
A bit of a different set of rules in the legal system. It seems like, you know, this trial is taking place in your district, as I mentioned, and Trump really issued some threats today against the judge, reiterated a lot of the angry, scary language we just can't become numb to. Do you have any concern about what that's going to mean in your district? Have you anything you've heard today that makes you concerned about that?
We've not heard any specific threats today, but this is an ongoing, serious problem. Donald Trump is ratcheting up his rhetoric. It's a call and response, and we saw what happened on January 6th. He knows exactly what he's doing, and even if he claims he doesn't, he has to know because of what happened on January 6th. And so when he starts insulting Attorney General James or the judge or District Attorney Fani Willis or Special Counsel Jack Smith, he is fomenting violence. And I would call right now on my Republican colleagues to denounce this rhetoric. I don't care whether you support Donald Trump or you don't support Donald Trump. We cannot have this violent, threatening rhetoric coming from the front runner to be president, former president, that has such an impact on so many people. And it is time for House Republicans, especially those who support Donald Trump. They can do it privately, but they need to tell him to cool it.
It's a very powerful note to end on. I hope people heed your warning. Heed your ask. Congressman Dan Goldman, thank you so much for joining me here on set tonight.